This episode of Stoke is sponsored.
Oh.
If there was if there was ever a need for a textbook crack of a can, that was it.
My guy, it's been like 5 weeks.
It's been 5 weeks. I want to say straight off the bat that I've been sick this week. So I apologize that I'm going to be sniffing a lot. I'm going to try my best to move away from the mic when I need a sniff. And if you don't hear any sniffs, it's because Lachie's worked his magic and you've cut out all the sniffs.
All right, painting a picture. Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock. Just finished a massive work week. You're back from your holiday. I'm back from my holiday.
Yep.
Yeah, we're kicking a fire in some pretty pristine conditions right now.
It is.
First episode in the daylight.
Yeah. The last couple of weeks have been pretty wet, but it's clear skies. It's a little bit fresh. There's a little breeze, and in a little while it's going to be cold, and we're just stoking around a fire.
We finished up last episode. We're going to have to think back a little bit. But we finished up last episode talking about experiential learning and what impact that has had for us individually, but also within a work perspective. And then this week we get to talk about good questions.
Oof.
Defining good, make a note of what good is, figuring out why we ask good questions, why we would want to, why we do, the purpose of them, and everything related to a good question.
I'm pretty sure we finished, and correct me if I'm wrong, we finished the last episode with a question about this episode like we normally do. And the question, I believe, was, what's a question that you've been asked? Like, what's a good question you've been asked? I could be making that up.
No.
But I have a memory of it.
Yeah. We both spent some time away from work and being around each other and being deep in thought. And so I took it upon myself to watch the last episode over again, just to kind of get my head back in the game.
You're outstanding.
It was a great watch, I'll tell you. We've done well. We're 2 subscribers strong, you and me.
And I have caught wind of someone else who listens.
Oh.
Well, 2 other people, actually.
Deep. We're going global.
And neither of them are my mum.
Is your mum listening?
I haven't told her about it, so probably not.
Oh.
But I know of 2 people that are listening.
That's exciting.
One person of whom I don't know, but I'm excited about.
Shout out to the 2 people that are listening.
Thank you.
You are out of things to do, it assumes.
That's so good. So circling back, you've listened to the last episode and we finished with a good question that we've been asked. I've kind of had some time to think about it, and I kind of might have an answer, but it's abstract as per normal.
Yeah, I took a shortcut, and as soon as we...
You use chat.
No, I didn't actually. I went for a question that you first asked. I'm not sure if you're the original founder or if
I'm
you
probably not.
have recycled. But a question you love to ask when someone challenges themselves with fear or does something uncomfortable, you ask, is it more scary or more fun? And this leads straight into the topic of good questions, but we both kind of agree that a good question is more than what it first sounds like. And so asking that question establishes 2 things. It's acknowledging that what we've just done is scary and fun, but we're not asking that. We're asking which was it more, and that puts into a lot of perspective what the question goes to. There's not a yes or no answer. It's not really like scary or fun. Anytime you say that, you're going to be almost forced to expand your answer.
And I hope I'm not jumping the gun, but that's why it's a good question. Because although it can be seen as a closed question, was it more fun or more scary? There's only 2, it's either more fun or more scary. But it leads to expand into a conversation, and that's why it's a good question. It's good. It's good. I refrained from going further because we're going to go into it. The thought I had, which probably leads us in, I was thinking of, in my world at the moment, there's a couple of young families that have kids that are kind of like at school, like just beginning school. And they're at that stage of life that they keep asking why.
Mm.
Have you ever been around kids that do that?
Why? Just because. But why?
Yeah. And
Because I said so.
it's like,
why?
why do we do this? And then you kind of explain, and you think that's a really good reason, and then they go, why? And you're like, okay, hang on, now I have to think about it. Anyway, I think those moments are underrated, and I'm not a parent, but I think we have to push into that. And obviously there comes a point where it's like, okay, this is silly now. Like, you know, we've gotten to the end of it, and now it's silly that we keep asking why. But I think the best question that has been asked to me is along the lines of, like, well, why?
I get the feeling that when someone asks you why, there's an impulse answer, and that's what you deliver. And then when you say why again, you've already used the impulse answer, so now you have to go deeper.
Yeah.
And you have to think about it more.
Yeah.
So it's probably why, impulse answer, why, long pause.
Think about it.
And then, yeah, your proper answer.
Yeah. I sent you a text earlier in the week of 4 things, and I was like, 1, how are you? 2, question. 3, question. 4, my last question was, how are you? Because I knew that you would answer the first one with, yeah, good.
Not bad. Yeah,
Not bad. Yeah, good. Do you want to dive into why?
Why?
Like, what's the point?
Yeah, we took some time to put a little section of notes down to lead this conversation. Looking at a list here, it's a great way to connect the dots and piece a puzzle together and just make you, kind of like what you said, look back and think and align the stars. It's a good way to break the ice with someone new. Asking, maybe not a good question specifically, but like a good question is normally something obscure or something that, good throw.
It was a bad throw. Yeah.
Something that catches someone off guard. And so I find that's quite powerful.
Oh, I have an example.
Jump in.
Just a story, and then we'll keep going.
Yeah.
Recently, you and I attended a wedding.
Ooh.
And I was sat next to someone during the dinner, and I said to them, hey, can you go through your normal week, Monday to Sunday, and can you describe your day by day in one word? So the person went like, okay, Monday, the word I would use is chaotic. Tuesday is, and it's just like this, such a different question.
Yeah.
And then she finished explaining her week, and then I was like, okay, why is Monday chaotic? Tell me about what happens on Mondays. And we had a full conversation going through each day of the week, and so it's kind of like an abstract question that breaks the ice. And now I know that person way better than when I first sat down next to him.
If you can remember this week, do you want to quickly
Give an example.
give it a try? You can do your Monday, I'll do my Tuesday, and we'll we'll repeat through.
My Monday, my word is downhill.
Ooh, off the rip.
Yeah. I started downhill.
This is good because the words make me want to ask so many questions, such as why. But
Your
downhill.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, let's go uncomfortable.
Interesting. I'm intrigued. See? It generates...
It's crazy. One word.
My Wednesday was slow.
Slow. My Thursday was tasty. You need context because that sounds wild.
It is Friday today, isn't it?
It is. Today.
My Friday has been satisfying. You see, and there's so many questions that jump off out of that.
And no one will ever know.
No, I'm going to ask you about it when we stop recording.
I love it. Another big one, which is probably the last one in terms of why we might ask these questions, is an invitation. We talked a little bit about breaking the ice, and I feel like breaking the ice and invitation come into play. But invitation is, assuming you already know the person and you're asking a question, it's an invitation into many things. It could be an invitation into a space, an experience, or an obscure conversation that maybe they're too afraid to pursue.
Yeah. Yeah, you got invitations of discovery, and can open the door to a wider conversation that you learn something, either the person asking the question or you're discovering something new. There's chance for change, transformation in the way that I think or act or see the world or see myself. The invitations are as unlimited as the amount of questions that you have.
Mm.
I just made a face to Lachie going, I'm going to listen back to what I just said.
I can't remember. It's been 5 seconds.
The invitations are as unlimited as the questions that you have.
Mm.
Or as limited as. If I've only got 2 questions up my sleeve, I'm probably not going to discover much.
In terms of pulling strange faces, because we have an epiphany.
Yeah, yeah.
We, whilst looking through this list, you brought up the translation of the word question.
Oh, yeah. I can't take credit for this, though.
Do you remember the story? Do you remember where this came from?
Yeah, so I was on the phone with my brother-in-law. Shout out to Sam. And we were on the phone and he had no idea about what we were going to record about or anything. And he was talking about he was having a conversation with someone. And he was asking lots of questions to them because he wanted to know them. And he had just listened to another podcast. I can't remember who it was. But they broke down that the word question, like the first half of the question is quest. And that Sam was like, oh, when I'm asking questions, like it's like we're going on a quest. If I have a question about my life, about, you know, where I'm at, what I'm doing, who I am, I'm going, that question is a quest that I have to go on. It's a journey. And I think similar to, like, if I'm asking you a question, Lachie, I'm kind of like, the invitation is to go on a quest.
Mm.
And so Sam was going like, that's really interesting. Like, I'm going to view questions as like mini quests in conversation and discovery and whatever.
Mm.
And then you did the second half of it, which is just golden.
Yeah, we had the word written up. We just had question on a whiteboard. And then we were talking about that concept of going on a quest. And then I looked at the back end of the word and it's ION. And if we just demolish that word into 3 different words, it's quest on. And so we came up with a little saying of what quest am I on?
Oh,
So chuck in a what at the start, chuck in an am in the middle somewhere, and you got what quest am I on?
yeah.
And when we talk about asking why and
Why?
pursuing a deeper into a question, that's what the quest is
Yeah.
opening up with a good question, which opens a conversation, which then leads to deep thinking or discovery, deeper than what the first question would allow.
Yeah.
And you're not going on a quest if you ask one question and they say this, and you're like, okay, cool, see ya.
Yeah.
And you walk away.
Yeah.
That's not a quest, and you're not really getting anything out of that question. So
Yeah.
going deeper is the quest.
Yeah.
That's something every time I see that word now, I'm just going to
What quest am I on?
go through.
It's so good. As we were brainstorming this, I highlighted that probably something that enhances the quest is having the ability to not make it about you if you're talking to someone, and like this idea of like self-seeking. Like, if I'm only asking you a question from a selfish like motive, to me it's kind of pointless. You know, have you ever been around those people that go like, oh, what did you do on Sunday? And you're kind of talking and they're kind of half listening, and then you finish and they go, well, I did this. And it's like, okay, well, you asked me the question because you wanted to tell me. I turn off immediately on those, those type of people, because I'm like, it's not, somebody who can ask powerful, beautiful, hard-hitting, irritating, transformational questions. It doesn't come from a place of like selfishness, and even to the point of like, oh, if I ask this question, it's going to make me look cool. Like, I feel like I can sniff it from a mile away. But when someone is like genuinely interested in somebody, and they want to make them feel comfortable, they want to make them feel known, they want to get to know them more, or they want them to go on, they want to go on a journey or quest with someone to discover something, and it's purely otherly, like I'm only thinking about the other person. Some of those conversations are like the most beautiful conversations I've been a part of. And I know that sometimes I've been in conversations, and there's people that you talk to and you walk away thinking, man, that person was talking to me like I was the only person in the universe. And they're often the most beautiful questions and conversations because the other person is so otherly motivated, and it's not about what can I gain, And I think that's a really important thing to think about in conversation. And like, we're probably talking about this from like a work maybe perspective, where we take groups of people, whether that be young kids or teenagers or adults, whatever, on adventures and experiences. And a part of our job is trying to help people connect what they've just done to some sort of learning, transformation, fun, connection type thing. And we often have to do that with reflection questions. And so viewing that type of conversation as purely otherly, I just want to help you see something or experience something or connect a dot. I think it only works, or it's the most powerful when it's not self-seeking. And it hasn't, like what we wrote on the whiteboard, like is like I don't have an agenda. Like if I feel like I'm trying to highlight something to you, I'll give it my best shot. But if it's wrong, I'm not going to take offense at it, because it's not about me. We're going to go somewhere else, different quest.
I think it's important to, agenda is a big word, I think, in this topic. It's important to, when you come up with the question or you're thinking of a question, take into consideration what the agenda is.
Yeah.
And what are you trying to get out? Because if you ask a question for the wrong reason, you're going to get the wrong answer as well.
Ooh.
And so what you said before, briefly about someone asking a question just to tell you about how they feel and how you tune out quickly. If someone asks you a good question and they genuinely care and it's with the right agenda, you'll forget that you're even in a conversation, and you'll just get so deep and passionate and just start flow state, spitballing, you just start throwing words out, and then you realize you've been talking for half an hour.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get asked a question with the wrong agenda by someone, and then they want it to be all about them, as you're talking, they're doing like, yeah, yeah, cool. Anyway, so me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, you can sniff it from a mile away. You know when it's coming. The way that the person walks at you, you can almost tell.
Yeah.
Like, agenda. That's a big part.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a story. A couple of years ago, at the place that we work, we also offer a training program to get a certificate 3. And a couple of years ago, I joined the class to explain my role and what we do and some things. And a lot of my job is asking questions. And so I spent the entire class simply asking questions to the gang, to the Cert 3 cohort. And one of the students said to me, she said, I don't feel comfortable asking groups that we take out questions because I don't ask myself the questions. And I was like, whoa. And since then, I know she has been on an incredible journey, and she's like a different person because something happened to her in that moment that she was like, I need to start asking myself those questions. And we catch up, like we'll see her periodically, and she's genuinely like a different person, and she's been on a really interesting journey, and it's really beautiful to see. But people who generate hard-hitting, powerful, genuine, authentic questions that can also generate authentic responses from someone else is often the person who has been on the quest themselves internally or with somebody else. Like they have done that. They've done the journey and maybe not completed it, but they're somewhere along the journey.
Still going.
So I would say like something that I've learned is I can generate questions around certain topics or experiences because I've been in similar positions and decided to ask myself those questions, or someone has asked me the questions and I've actually been on that quest or I've wrestled it. And it also means I am super quick to maybe like recognize it in people. Like, you know, we can be in a conversation and somebody could say something about the stage of life that they're in, and I go, oh man, I kind of recognize that because that's in me. Like, because I'm like wrestling with that, or I've done something similar, and I wonder how we can like open this up, and not so I can pass on any sort of like wisdom or weird advice thing. It's just like, oh, I wonder if I can throw a question your way that I've had to think about, and I'm not going to tell you the answer because you need to go on the quest, but I can recognize it in you because it's in me, and I've explored that a little bit.
Someone asked me, I would say less than half an hour ago.
Oof.
I was just sitting on my laptop, writing some notes, reviewing what this afternoon might look like.
Yep. And
just in bold, it's still there, but it just says, what quest am I on? And it's a question mark. And someone asked me, like, what does that mean? Like, what's that? And I said, honestly, I don't know. And so
We're about to find out.
yeah, it's literally me sitting there looking at the question, someone else discovering the question,
Wow.
and me still being at the point of like, you can look at this and ask yourself too, but I can't talk on it because I haven't looked at it myself. Like
Yeah.
I haven't spent enough time asking myself what question am I on, or
Yeah.
you can get deeper. It's not just a question, but just
Yeah.
in general, like where am I heading? What direction am I going?
Man, I'm thinking about like, we love a good metaphor. When we do
Come on.
when we do expeditions, like when we go on like a walking trail overnight with groups or whatever, we always do something called a recce, a reconnaissance. That before we take a group, we will walk the track.
They're always way better than the real groups. Lots of mischief.
So we will walk the track and go, where does this go? How does this work? Where are we going to stop for lunch? And that's like similar when you're guiding a group and you're trying to touch on something about like overcoming fear. It's like, well, maybe I've walked that track before, so maybe I know how to ask a good question down the track and go like, oh, did you see this? Because I saw this because I've done this. And it's not about me trying to pass on knowledge. It's me going, I think I know this track, and I can probably generate a good question. It's not about me. It's not self-seeking, but out of my experience and me walking this journey, I might be able to create something that is going to irritate you a little bit, and then you have to go on the quest. And I think I really appreciate your authenticity when someone has said to you like, oh, what does that mean? What quest are you on? And you're like, I don't know. That's powerful.
Yeah, a little thought that I just had whilst
Please.
you were talking about doing a recce and walking a trail and going on a journey, and then talking about asking the right question.
Yeah.
I feel like timing is a massive contributor as well.
Say more.
Continue. if let's use the recce journey, and
Yep.
you're walking down a trail and you're talking about I'm making this up on the fly, but you have a question about a waterfall or something, but you're still 5Ks from the waterfall. It's not going to make much sense.
Yeah.
Like asking that question that's that deep or whatever, you're not going to be able to pull a good answer. And so maybe like thinking and considering timing, like when you think of a good question,
Yeah.
you don't have to jump into it straight away. It might not be the right time.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like a little note.
I like
Note
that.
to self, I guess, in this
Yeah.
thought process, but
Yeah.
thinking about the timing of the question and the surroundings and when that question's being asked or thought about.
And like the lead up. So like you mentioned before, a question I ask after an experience like a giant swing or an abseil is I'll ask, was it more fun or more scary? And that's not really the question I'm trying to ask. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to assess whether the person might be ready or not to go to the next question. And so if they're like, oh, it was more scary, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure. If they're not really up for a chat because they've literally just come off a giant swing, I'm like, okay, this is the wrong timing. You're so right about the timing thing. But if it's like, actually, it was way more fun, and I go, okay, now we can move to another quest that the more fun or more scary question is unto. But it's kind of like a trick question. But the timing has to be right and the lead up has to be right.
If you ask more fun or more scary before someone goes on the swing, you're getting one answer. And then if you ask more fun or more scary after the swing,
Yeah.
completely different answer.
Yeah.
For the majority. You're obviously going to have cases where it's the same, but it's an interesting concept.
Yeah. And that could either work in your favor or not.
And when you talk about connecting the dots, in that specific example, you don't have to be able to... If I took you on the swing and I just asked you after the occasion, hey, was that more fun or more scary? And you say, oh, fun, for sure. Even though I hadn't asked you, you could kind of be like, if I had asked you before this experience,
Yes.
what do you think your answer would have been?
Yeah.
And
Can you remember back to how you were feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got a whole process to talk about between...
You got a whole quest.
Yeah, wait. Yeah, from when you theoretically would have asked that question, they've gone through like a roller coaster of thoughts and feelings, and then you can just dig into those emotions, and ties into the question we spoke about halfway through last episode about what did you not learn through that experience.
What a question.
And then that just comes straight into like naturally.
Yeah.
And all you've done to achieve that goal or get to that location is ask Was that more fun or more scary?
Yeah.
That semi-closed question.
Yes. Semi-closed.
We discussed that, I think, a little bit when we weren't recording. The idea
Yeah.
of closed questions being quite poor and not great, but it's
Yeah.
also like a door. Like it opens up the opportunity for
Yeah, dude.
not closed questions.
I've actually been thinking about the comment we made about closed questions all week since last Friday. Because in our training, we've been taught that closed questions are bad.
Yeah.
Like, don't ask closed questions because it doesn't open conversation. So for a long time, I've avoided them. But I realize if you ask a closed question with no purpose, yeah, it's probably bad. But if it's leading to something and you're trying to connect dots, it could be the only way to walk the path until you get to another question, like in terms of what you're saying about timing and lead up. So I don't think closed questions are bad. I think if it's all you have or there's no purpose to it, they're not the best. They're not helpful. They don't get you anywhere. But if you have a closed question like, was it more fun or more scary? It's a setup. I have some more questions up my sleeve, but I need to start it somehow. So I'm changing my mind on what I think about closed questions.
That's because you've gone on a quest.
I have. I've been like, why are they bad?
Normally, when time is an issue, when we're like running low on time or not in an ideal situation, or you've got a real tough group, a question that can be asked is, was that fun? Or did you have fun?
Oof.
And just looking at this simple twist of the question, you don't even have to continue the quest or the conversation, but just implanting the thought of, was that more fun or more scary?
Yeah.
Rather than saying, was that fun? Like, what a difference that question would make.
Clicking back to the irritating, like, question that irritates, sometimes with the right person, if you say, was that more fun or more scary? And they go, it was actually way more fun than I thought. All you have to go is, that's interesting. And you're like, you've done it. Like, you've irritated. They know. They know exactly what's happened.
Turn around, walk away.
And it's like, sometimes that is all you need. And they go, I've just connected the dots.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking about that participant we had like years ago with that disadvantaged kid, like youth.
Yeah.
And she came one year and she didn't want to go on the swing. It took ages to get on. And then she had a fun time. And did she go again? Did she go for a second swing and went a bit higher or something? And we asked her, was it more fun, more scary? And then she came back the next year and she remembered and she got off the bus, came up to us and she said, I have a question for you. Was it more fun or more scary? And it was like, that's all we needed to give her. And she's remembered it for a year and hopefully she's used it in her life.
And that's the likelihood, if she can come up off a bus after 12 months and ask us the question, she's thought about it.
She's been on the quest.
Yeah, she's been thinking about it outside. We're in such a rabbit hole, and I love this.
Yeah.
But I want to tunnel a little bit.
Okay.
Another question or query that I have that relates to this topic a little bit is when we ask good questions, sometimes we're hit with a bit of a roadblock, which is like a poor answer. 50% of the time, we get what we consider within the industry as the right answer, which is we ask a question and the people we're talking to know what we want as an answer. So they just tell us what we want to hear.
Yeah.
And so a great talking point, which this is going to be so free-flowing and just off the cuff, but a question I ask a lot is, how can I achieve the real answer, not the right answer? And so the right answer is obviously what we want to hear, but I don't care what they say. I just want them to say not what I want to hear, if that makes sense. Like, you want them to think about it and you want them to go deeper. I think for me, if I was to ask someone a question without using a specific example, you would get the feeling straight away. It's like when we ask, hey, we just did like a team initiative here and a challenge that involves us to work together. What are some like key things that we realized like we did well? And someone's like, teamwork, communication.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'm glad we learnt 2 words.
We already knew.
And so then you're obviously forced to go a bit deeper and be like, okay, like what does teamwork look like? What did it look like? And how did we use it? When someone says one of those questions, or those answers, sorry, you kind of understand that they're just trying to move on and they're not as like in depth. Whereas when someone pauses and there's that real tense, awkward silence, that's what I love. Because I know when someone speaks after that awkward length of silence, you know that thinking has been done. You know that a bit of reflecting has been done, and they're ready to like provide an answer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good example. I think like it's when people have actually thought about the question and what it relates to and their genuine, authentic perspective or response or feeling to the question. And that it's okay if it's quote unquote wrong or not even like fully formed. Like that's when you know it's a real answer. And I honestly think it's actually it's very difficult to get that. And I think what it takes is people who are asking real questions that helps that, and being brave enough to sit in the silence and to be like, it's fine, I'll wait. Like I would rather wait for a real answer than get an immediate quick one that is quote unquote correct. Like, and I think it often requires the question asker to think outside the box, because if I ask you a question that's inside the box, you can just respond inside the box. Like, you know, it's important to ask people how are you, but if I'm just like, how are you? I mean, it's in the box, and you go, yeah, good. The reason why I got a real response from you when I text you is because I asked you it twice, and that's outside the box. Like, oh, he's asked me again. I'm gonna think about it. Like, it's just something different, you know. And you know, we have a friendship that means that I don't require to ask you twice. Like, you know, if we catch up and I'm like, how you doing? You'll give me your real response. Like, but with groups it's different, and you know, new people it's different. But it requires the question answer asker to think outside the box.
Yeah, I feel like there's a bit of responsibility that comes in with being someone who seeks to ask good questions.
Yeah.
Because there's also the reverse side where you get an answer that you want to hear, which this is getting confusing of what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you get the answer of what you want to hear, but maybe it's coming from someone who's never been challenged in their thoughts. There's a great campsite that we've both visited a couple of times, and an awesome thing they do is they ask a question, they get an answer, and then they just say, do you mind if I challenge that thought a little bit?
Yeah.
And I've only watched it happen like twice, but seeing people be like, yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I could show a facial expression right now.
Yeah,
but
it's like concern and confusion in one.
yeah, it's like the people
Okay.
give the answer so quickly and confidently.
Yeah.
But then when they're challenged, they kind of sit down and realize they've never been challenged before in terms of their response or the way they've reacted to something.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of the responsibility you take on as someone who asks or seeks to ask good questions.
Yeah.
You need to be ready to like dig a tunnel and go on the quest and chase it down.
Yeah.
Because you could be talking to someone who has just given yes nos their whole life, and just being that like ready to adapt and ready to get involved, and also be ready to get an answer you're not prepared for. The amount of times you and I have asked quite simple questions to people, and they've played the reverse card, and they've just taken us on a life story of like trauma and difficult times.
Yeah.
And again, responsibility, like that's what you're signing up for when you ask that question.
If you're asking a real question, you have to be prepared to hold the real answer, like whatever that is. Yeah. What else you got in your notes?
We just had a few examples
that
we kind of wrote down. I don't know if we brought this up in conversation, but previously we've discussed about our lunchtime ethics and and how occasionally we like to just jump in the car and drive somewhere with not much purpose, not much know of what we're actually going to be getting for lunch, but it's not really, we're not going on that drive for lunch. We're going on that drive for a pocket of conversation where it's like a very safe space and very open to either sit there for 10 minutes and not talk, or sit there for 10 minutes and non-stop conversation unfolds.
And can you explain, there's something intentional we do about inviting?
Yeah.
Are you going there?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Over time. But yeah, we kind of asked each other a lot of questions in that space and thought, how interesting would it be to like pull someone into this no context, just be like, hey, do you want to come get lunch? And then just open up their life and just ask some very, what we would consider good questions. A very unique question to ask someone that we've discovered is, who are you and what are you doing here?
Oh, man.
And the rabbit hole that brings out isn't just like, hey, I'm Lachie and I'm getting lunch. That's the
initial.
That's the right answer.
I haven't thought about it.
But yeah, the real answer is putting that person on a slight train of thought to take the time to think. I guess if we go back to our dot points, it's an invitation
Yeah.
to think about like what chapter you're in with what you're doing at the moment, and like what's your mission or your drive.
Yeah. I that question comes from like an ancient story. I don't know if it's real or not, but the story goes that there's this monk way back when, and he is asking for his purpose. You know, so he's in this monastery, or you know, and he's praying, what's my purpose? And he feels like he is meant to go to a city that's like on foot 6 weeks travel away, and he's meant to go to the city. And so he's like, done. So he packs up his stuff, packs up his whole life, and he walks for 6 weeks to go to this city. And he gets to the gates of the city or whatever, and there's a like a guard on the watchtower or whatever. And he gets to the door, and the doors are closed, and the guy from the tower looks down and says, who are you and what are you doing here? And the monk realizes that he can only answer one of those questions. And the only question he can answer is what he's meant to be doing. He can't answer, who are you? And so the fable goes that the monk just turns around and he walks back. Because he's like, I can't do what I think I'm meant to be doing if I don't know who I am. And that's where that kind of question comes from. And I love the story. I love the picture it paints. And I love asking that people, because it's so off-putting. And it's so like, whoa, I got to think about who I am. I've never thought about that before. But yeah, like I love when we ask that question in the car. I hijacked you, but keep going.
No, it's fine. I think it's also one of the questions that you can repeat.
Yeah.
So we could ask ourselves that question monthly, weekly, daily.
Yeah.
And the answers are going to change over time.
Yeah.
So it's a powerful question because it's one that can be used over and over and over, and it doesn't really get old.
Yeah, that's good. The other question that I know we've said in the car before, but it's something that I ask a bunch of people and myself quite a lot. The question is, what don't you like about yourself? And I remember the conversation we had. I think we've only done it once in the car, and the conversation was like awesome because it was you and me, and it was two other guys in the car, two other like boys in the car,
All stars.
and. And I'm not stereotyping, and I'm not saying girls don't have this problem. Like, it's a vulnerable question. It is not what's the best thing about yourself. It's not what do you do really well. It's what don't you like about yourself. And I would say for guys, that is a hard and vulnerable question, especially if you are in a car with 3 other guys. And it's like, well, damn, now I have to I got to reveal, the worst things about myself. And it was the right time and it was with the right people. But it was such a beautiful conversation that I feel like I know the 3 of you way better because of your answers. And it wasn't a place of like, well, now I have some power because I also shared. But it's a point of like connection. Like from being your friend for a while, I know the best things about you. I know the characteristics that are like the best and that I really admire and look up to. And I think we try our best to hide the things that we don't like about ourselves. But knowing that is going, actually, we're knowing people way better, way more holistic. But I think more importantly than that, it's important for me to ask myself that question because there's parts of us that we don't like. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's a bad thing if we don't look at it, if we don't go on that quest. But like that's a quest worth going on individually, and then you can do it with other people in a safe and in a supportive environment for sure. I don't just go around being like, what do you hate about yourself? Yeah. It's a tough question.
Stumbled across this incredible video which was relating to job interviews, and it was just talking about it. It makes me really want to like interview people now, even if I can't do it for a job. Just ask them. But the question is something along the lines of, as someone who's employing people and running a business, I don't like surprises. And I want you to have a deep think and tell me 6 months down the line, I'm going to learn some things about you that I'm not going to like. So I want to know, what are 3 things that like I need to know about you now so I don't get surprised down the line.
Oh, man.
And ever since I did that, it kind of took me in that tunnel of like, if someone asked me that question, like what would be the 3 weaknesses in quotation marks
Wow.
of me that like would surprise someone once they got to know me to a certain level.
Wow.
And I think it's like a really unique perspective. And I think you're probably sitting here in the same thing of like, oh man, I want to ask myself, I want to ask these 5 people this question and just get perspective. But it really opens up your eyes to like, what do I hold back? And at what point do I open that part of me up to other people?
Yeah, what do I try and hide, but inevitably, like, I can't? Oof. The genius thing about that question in an interview is that, one, they are looking for the answers, so they're not surprised. But I think the interviewer is probably more interested in how you answer it, not with what. I love that. What a good question.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to specifically unpack.
I've probably got 2 things on my mind.
Come on.
One is right at the end of when we were brainstorming, we jotted down, you only know it's a good question by asking it. And so I think how we've learnt to ask good questions is that we've just asked questions and we're secure enough to be like, yeah, that was bad. Like, that didn't really land. I need to rework that, or, I probably didn't land that right. It was the wrong time. It was the wrong setup, wrong word choice, whatever it was. You only know if it's a good question or not if you ask it and you see the response. And I think that's a really important thing to try. So if there is anybody listening who goes, well, I don't know how to ask good questions, like, just ask the question to yourself and you'll find if it's good or not. And if it's not, keep working on it, make it good. Like, you got to start somewhere, and honestly, like, it's the best fun. Like you and I have such beautiful and full conversations because we've worked on how to ask good questions and respond authentically.
I feel like it also puts you, when you do that over a set amount of time, you could get asked a question which is like yes or no, but then you just take it over and you turn it into something it's absolutely not, and you get super deep and attached to this question that's like so easy.
Can I give you an example?
Please.
A couple of weeks ago, would have been maybe 8 weeks ago, you were walking down the driveway holding some arrows from our archery, and a safe way to carry the arrows is you hold the ends of them like you're pushing a shopping trolley. So you're walking down the driveway like that, and there's a colleague next to you, and they ask you, "What's in your trolley?" as a joke, because you're pushing a metaphor, an imaginary trolley, and you've just turned it into, like, in your head, you go, "That is a good question." Like, and you and I often think and talk in metaphors, and so you're like, "What is in my trolley? What am I shopping for?" Like, that's now it's suddenly a question that you're on, like. And then you came and told me, and like we were like, oh my goodness, like, I think that's such a byproduct of when you work hard at honing that skill of asking good questions, is that you can start generating it out of almost what seems like thin air, because someone's just gone, "What are you shopping for?" And you're like, hold up. Like, you don't know what you just asked.
Yeah.
It's so good.
The poor lady put me on a train of thought for the rest of the afternoon where I was just thinking, like, first of all, what is my trolley?
Oh.
Second of all, where's it going? And third of all, like, what am I getting?
100%.
And then I, in a nice way, bullied a bunch of kids, but I threw them under the bus by asking them some questions, and I said, hey, me and my friend love asking questions and twisting them into something they're not. And so I would frame it up and ask, picture a supermarket where on all the shelves is like anything. Physical, non-physical, imaginary, whatever. Emotions, feelings, anything. That aisle's infinite, and it's got everything on every shelf. And it's like, if you had to like top up on like 3 items, what would you grab?
Shop for.
Yeah, and I guess that's where the whole analogy ended up. Was like,
It's so good.
someone just walked past and said, "Oh, you're holding it like a shopping trolley. What's in your trolley?" And then I spend like 12 hours just being laying in bed looking at the roof like, what is my trolley?
What is in my trolley? It's so good. Yeah, it's so good.
What an awesome thought. Thank you for bringing that up again.
Oh, pleasure.
That deserted my memory bank a little bit.
I think about it quite a bit. The other thing I wanted to mention was that when we were thinking about this episode, I was trying to communicate in my head what I think questions do to people, and I came up with a picture of the mirrors. And if I just unpack that for a second, when I was a kid, my mum had a mirror, and it was like 3. It's hard to explain with non-visuals, but it was like a 3-paneled mirror. So there was one in the middle, and then there was 2 like wing mirrors that were on hinges that you can change the angle of. I feel like I described that quite well.
You did. It's like a trifold flyer.
Yes.
Like, you've got the main face, and then you open the 2 sides, and you've got...
You and I know trifold flyers quite well, don't we? Exactly. So there's a mirror in the middle, and then connected by hinges on the sides of these 2 wing mirrors, and it means that the 2 on the side, the angle kind of changes. And what I kind of pictured was, when you're asking someone a question, you're kind of getting them to reflect about their internal world, their thoughts, their feelings, their experiences, whatever. So you're like, the question is like holding up a mirror, and it's not self-seeking because they're looking back at them, they're not looking at you. That would be weird. And I view my job as, I just have to tweak the mirror at a different angle so that the person that's looking at the mirror sees something differently. And I remember being a kid, and I used to angle the 2 side mirrors, that if I looked through one, I would see like the mirror behind me in its reflection, and I would see the back of my head, and I'd be like, oh, that's what the back of my head looks like. And that's what we do with questions where, you ask, was it more fun or more scary? And they're kind of looking directly at the middle mirror, and they might go, oh, it was more fun. And you go, well, that's interesting. But when you first started, you were like terrified, and you've just angled the mirror a little bit. And they're like, yeah, I was really terrified. Oh, but now you've had more fun. What happened? And you've just literally gone, let's have a look at the back of your head.
Yeah.
Like, and I love that picture. And I've been using it this week when I've been in conversations of being like, I wonder if I ask this question, the angle changes. And if I ask it this way, the angle changes. And we look at something else. And it's such a fun experiment. Like, it's such a fun tool to have. I think that's like the beauty in crafting good questions and wanting to get to know people and wanting to discover things about them and get them to discover things and discover things about you. And man,
a funny real life example of anyone can do this, but if you have like an iPhone or a Samsung, whatever, and you open up like selfie, you take a photo of yourself, but then you go like edit and you can mirror it, and you like spin it the other way, and you will look at a different person. But
it's weird.
The way that you see yourself flipped is the way that everyone else sees you. And so there's almost this like real hidden metaphor here, I guess, or analogy, but it's like you're so used to seeing yourself one way. When you flip that image, you start to see what everyone else sees, but it looks weird to you. Yeah. Because you're not used to it.
Yeah.
And so I guess when you're asking those questions and you're like, kind of what we said before about at what point do you start unveiling parts of yourself that people don't normally get to know, those surprises. Yeah. If you were to like invert that photo early, you're going to start to see what other people see straight away. Yeah. I think it's really, really difficult. This is getting like pretty deep, but
please,
it's really difficult to know how other people see you unless you ask questions or you intentionally go on that quest to try and figure it out. But you always have your perception of you and other people have their perception of you, but neither sides know what the other one looks like. Yeah. Which is
so true.
Crazy.
So true. Can I finish with a question?
I'll allow that.
Can I finish?
As long as it's good.
Oh, well, I won't know until I ask it. I'll ask you, but also if anyone in the future is listening to this,
Mm.
then I have a question for you. And the question is this: what quest are you on?
Mm.
And similar to like the trolley thing, that if it was any path leading anywhere, could go anywhere, you discover anything.
Mm.
What quest are you on personally in your own world?
Once we've answered that at the start of the next episode, we'll just like seamlessly cut straight to the next
Done.
topic.
I love
Which,
it.
little
Yeah,
teaser,
hit me with it.
going off script.
Oh, stop it.
Absolute banger. We only have 2 more episodes planned, which is episode 4 and 5. So going off script is next, the power of moments and how it catches people off guard. And then the one after that, which could be a long one. We're going to have to put this in the schedule in a good time. But the power of stories.
Oh my word.
And what that does. So then we've got a list of upcoming ideas, which is getting very long. And so we'll just be able to pick and see how we feel.
That's epic. Okay.
This has been killer.
Going off script.
Mm.
What quest are you on? Power of stories. Mirrors.
Who are you? What are you doing here?
What don't you like about yourself?
What did you not learn about this podcast?
Why?
Dude, that
was a full circle.